Now, I'm here with Ben Goertzel, the CEO of SingularityNET. Could you tell us a bit about what SingularityNET is, what you guys do, what inspired you to create this AI marketplace, and why you chose to make it decentralized?
Yeah, I came into this whole blockchain AI enterprise from the AI side more so than the blockchain. So I've been doing AI for 30 plus years, and there's been a notion in AI for a long time called a society of minds, where you build an AI by having a whole bunch of different AIs with different strengths and weaknesses, communicate, collaborate, and share knowledge and sort of solve problems together. And it seemed that if you want a society of minds that's not a dictatorship, but more a democratic society of minds with a bunch of AIs that basically they're autonomous and they control themselves and they decide whose problems to solve and who to cooperate with in solving problems. If you want this to be a democratic and participatory network of AIs, blockchain is a tool that allows that, because it allows coordination of a complex set of agents in a decentralized way without a central controller. And so that was the inspiration behind SingularityNET. So it's both to make a medium for the emergence of general intelligence from cooperation of a bunch of specialized AI agents, and it's to do practical intelligence to solve real-world problems, but in a way that is not controlled by any one corporation or any one government. And it doesn't mean corporations and governments don't have a role to play. We actually have a spin-off called Singularity Studio, which just makes products for large enterprises where the back end is on this decentralized AI network. So I think governments, large corporations have a role, as do small-scale companies and individual entrepreneurs. But the foundation should be a decentralized AI network. And this message is resonating more and more when you see crazy things happening in the world of tech now with Facebook's new cryptocurrency and all these issues with big companies abusing people's data, then the US and China fighting over who can use whose software. I mean, you can avoid all this mess if you have a decentralized foundation for artificial intelligence. There are technical challenges, but we're fighting through them. So we launched a beta of SingularityNET in February, and now we're engaged with getting more developers to put AI into the decentralized AI platform and marketplace, and getting more developers and companies to use the AI in this
So
platform.
it's an ever-expanding ecosystem.
Yeah. I mean, being a platform, you need demand and you need supply, right? The supply is AI developers putting AI in there. The demand is either individual product developers or companies like, say, Domino we're working with, or Ping On we're working with in China.
Yeah. It's
AI
kind of full circle, right?
pizza.
You're back at the pizza thing. All right.
Yeah,
great.
well, I mean, pizza, that's where Bitcoin began,
Exactly.
right? So yeah, and this will help us get to the singularity, because all the programmers need pizza to fuel their programming. So if the AI can bring them faster pizza, it's all going to accelerate, right?
Now, you mentioned there does seem to be demand, because you guys managed to raise over 30 million in your initial ICO. Is that correct?
That's right, in late 2017, which was a good time for it. But we've continued to see a lot of enthusiasm from the community, because there were a bunch of high quality ICOs and a bunch of lower quality ICOs. And I think what you're seeing in the market now is those
that survived the winter.
I mean, the altcoin projects that are actually building stuff they're going to flourish, and then the others are going away, and this is natural selection, right? And so I think the current bear market isn't going to last forever, but in hindsight, it might seem to have been a good thing, in that it may have winnowed out projects that didn't really have either a real idea or didn't have execution ability to build something. Right.
Now, something that I find interesting, you are a big believer that sort of the next thing for artificial intelligence is moving beyond narrow AI and moving into what you like to call general AI, right? Artificial general intelligence.
Sure.
How do you think that transition is going to happen? How close are we to actually making that transition?
First thing to remember is when the AI field was initiated, in the 1950s and back before, what they were thinking about was general intelligence. I mean, they were thinking about AIs that could think like people or even better than people. And I mean, the focus on very narrow AI systems that can just do one particular thing, like play Go or drive a certain kind of car or optimize, a certain type of supply chain. I mean, this was really born of pragmatism, partly because of the limited processing power and limited amounts of data that had been available, right? So now we have much more processing power. We have huge amounts of data through the internet, and we have a lot of AI developers, working on different parts of the AI problem, and we have platforms such as SingularityNET that allow many AIs to connect together into larger scale AI. So I think with all these ingredients, we're poised to sort of get back to the roots of AI and make things really work. I mean, exactly when human level AGI will come about, I mean, nobody knows. What I'm saying lately is 5 to 30 years from now, right? Which is a pretty big range. But on the other hand,
it's not an exact estimate,
but in the scope of the evolution of humanity, it's a pretty small range, right? Because that means that in the big picture, we're incredibly close to this tremendous achievement, which is pretty exciting, and it's going to transform every domain of industry. Then the question is, what kind of AGI are we going to get? Are we going to get, one that is concerned with spying on people and killing people and reprogramming their minds to turn them into better, consumer products and service purchasing engines? Or will we get one that respects the broader variety of human values, desires, and interests? And again, this is
where SingularityNET.
Yeah, this is where the more
right?
utopian side of the cryptocurrency world comes in, right? Because there's a whole anarcho-libertarian strain at the heart of the crypto world, which is part of what attracted me to it, which is the idea that by decentralizing things, you're supposed to preserve freedom and diversity. And this is even more important for AI than it is for people, because AIs are going to develop much more rapidly than human beings are.
Now, I have an interesting question. You do quite a bit of work in China, right? I mean, you're in Hong Kong for Hanson Robotics, and you're a lecturer, professor at Xiamen Tech, correct?
Yeah, Xiamen University. Yeah, I've lived in Hong Kong for 8 years and been spending time in China longer than that.
Now, how do you find the field or the ideas and sort of the technology behind AI is handled differently in a Chinese context versus an American context? I mean, China's made it sort of a priority for themselves, right, with becoming the leader by 2030. How do you think that affects sort of the development or the speed of development of like new artificial intelligence within Chinese borders versus American borders, which tends to be maybe a bit more hands-on?
I would say China is already the leader in scalable deployment of AI technology. And they're putting a huge amount of resources behind development of new AI tech and training of new AI programmers. So if things proceed roughly as they are now, China will be in the lead by 2030. I mean, they're going in this direction, and US and Europe are concerned with other priorities at the moment, right? So I would say they have certain advantages in that they've set that as a central priority to foster AI. Also, collection of data is centralized, so you have a tremendous amount of data to feed AI systems.
The most precious resource for AI, right, at this point.
Most precious resource is probably still innovation from the human brains of developers, but the data is a key, and processing power is a key. And on the other hand, so far, every really new AI algorithm or approach has come from the US, Western Europe, or Japan. I mean, not yet from China. So China hasn't yet been an AI innovation powerhouse. They've been a scalable AI deployment powerhouse, right? And it's an open question whether the next big AI innovation will come from some, young Chinese AI developer instead of a Westerner. It's entirely possible. But one thing it's worth emphasizing, though, is on the research side, the AI field is very international. I mean, Chinese researchers, American ones, Japanese, whatever, they're posting papers in archive.org. Code is going in GitHub, right? So on the research side, it's still pretty much borderless in terms of exchange of ideas. But it's when you get to deploying practical systems, the Chinese are doing really well. And this is where blockchain could play a very key role for the West, actually, because part of China's advantage is they're very centralized, which brings some efficiency with it. Now, if we want to be able to compete with China in scalable AI, but respect Western ideals of privacy and individual control, then we need something like blockchain, and we need a bunch of fancy tools like homomorphic encryption to allow different views of a person's data to be analyzed by different people, and this is harder, right? So to be able to do large-scale AI analytics in practice while respecting individual privacy and agency, it is a more difficult computer science problem than achieving scalable AI with a centralized infrastructure. On the other hand, it's one that we know how to solve in the mathematics level. It just requires all these blockchain projects that are in the works to actually function.
Make the leap into fully functional.
Deliver large-scale, robust code. And in that light, it would seem that what Western governments should be doing is putting literally trillions of dollars into blockchain infrastructure for AI. On the other hand, it's not what's happening at the moment. So really, the only chance for the West to not be left way behind by China in the AI race is in the relatively small and marginal blockchain and AI world, which is not trivial. I mean, there's a lot of smart people and a significant amount of resources, but not on the level of what is going into centralized AI at this point. Now, you see, like Facebook has a new cryptocurrency, right? And the level of development team that Facebook was able to put behind that is just more than any blockchain project. I mean, okay, if you raise tens of millions of dollars in an ICO, that's amazing. It's great. It's wonderful to be part of a community where that's possible. But tens of millions of dollars for a project it's nothing for a Facebook or a Google or Alibaba or Tencent. Like, it's a tiny little side project. So the amount of resources that seems impressive to you and me in the crypto world is a rounding error for those doing centralized AI deployments. On the other hand, it wouldn't be the first time a small upstart effort had managed to overtake a very well-funded effort. I mean, that was Google and Microsoft.
Exactly.
In the 1980s when I was in Google was late 90s, Microsoft early 80s, right? So I mean, I started programming on mainframe computers and little electronic machines you had to wire together yourself and program in machine code. Since that time, you've had big companies rise and fall, replaced by other big ones. So maybe
everyone has to start somewhere.
Yeah, maybe
right?
the decentralized AI ecosystem is really gonna disrupt the disruptors. At least that's what we're aiming for. And the Maltese government is interestingly willing to put itself behind the intersection of AI and blockchain. Now they're not as wealthy as the Chinese government, but if you put your emphasis in the right place, then a modest amount of resources can still do great things.
Exactly, and you see that it's funny enough because there's a lot of small states that are making that move, right? You have Liechtenstein, Switzerland, Malta.
Singapore is doing a huge amount,
exactly.
Actually. Yeah.
So these aren't like the
and
China
Australia,
and the
for
Americas.
that matter. Yeah. I would say Singapore may be the biggest success story so far in that they've funded an awful lot of science, both computer science, AI, biotech, and now blockchain. And that's really, a little tiny country with essentially no natural resources. And just by judicious expenditure of their funds and by a well-designed legal and regulatory system, then they've managed to become leaders in many areas of science and fairly prominent in blockchain also, right? So I think, Malta could emulate Singapore, but with a bit more like free and open Mediterranean touch, which
There we go.
should be exciting.
Add some Mediterranean flair. There we go. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. Very
Sure,
exciting to see what happens with SingularityNET in the coming months.
None of us knows what's going to happen in the next couple months. I guess I know what's going to happen. We got a lot of cool initiatives planned. And we're spinning off a few different projects that will utilize the SingularityNET platform in different domains. So there should be a bunch of because we've launched a new accelerator platform called XLab, which is basically to foster startup projects that use SingularityNET AI on the back end. So we'll have a bunch of cool announcements regarding that.
To hearing all about it.
A couple years out, honestly, none of us knows what the future is going to hold, and that's part of what's exciting about this space. It just evolves so fast.
Well, thank you again.
All right, thank you.